working on the annual Homeless Count Day, pastor of 1208 Greenwood Free Methodist Church, Jamin Bradley. Jamin, welcome back.
Thanks, Bart.
Nice to see you. I see sometimes your church is called the Nerd Church.
Yeah, well, we have a few different, there's our main church, which is 1208 Greenwood, but then we tried to found a little church that tries to reach nerds. So that one's Nerd Church Jackson.
You're trying to reach all segments that need a church.
I'm a nerd myself, so me and a bunch of other nerds were like, why are we not doing something cool with this? So that's where that came out of that.
Yeah, I think you do like game days and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So the annual Homeless Count Day, I believe this is something that's been done for many years and is done everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Always on the 31st of January?
I think it's the fourth Wednesday?
Okay.
The fourth or fifth?
All right,
It's a Wednesday, I know that much.
So it's done in January when we've got usually horrible weather.
Yeah, we've done a few in polar vortexes before. It was freezing, yeah.
So first, why do we have a Homeless Count Day?
Right. The easiest way to explain it that I've found is if you remember, if you went to public school, there was always like a school count day where it was like, make sure your kids come to school on this day. And a lot of the reasoning behind that is you got to count up who's actually present on that one single day, which then kind of turns into funding to kind of help your school from a governmental perspective. Same thing's true for your county when it comes to the homeless population. So we already have numbers on people who are at shelters. We know some who are couch surfing and doing other kinds of things. But what we don't know on that specific day is who is street homeless. So
Street homeless.
street homeless. We have one day a year. We don't choose the day chooses us. And we go out on that specific day to see how many street homeless people we can find.
Now, there are people that we see in downtown streets, in every city.
Yep.
That seems to be a congregation location. But there's got to be people that aren't interested in being visible. How do you find them?
Yeah, well, that's one of the cool things about this event is, well, first off, once you get out there, you realize, what if I was homeless right now in this weather? How would I survive? So that starts getting your mind to say, I got to do something more about this than this one day a year. But then, two, you find some of those places. Like I found a tent under a viaduct next to a river with an extension cord running to it, with this much space to lie down, and that was eye-opening for me to be like, I had no idea this was here. It was under my feet. I drive over this bridge every day. And that just kind of opens you up to what homeless people are going through and kind of engages you more. So we have 12 maps. We send people out in groups to check specific areas that we're used to knowing where homeless people are. But then you can just kind of even go on an average day. You can go downtown Jackson right here. And if you were to check out every street corner in every space, you might find someone anywhere.
Are there encampments?
Encampments, I think, have always been around Jackson, but they tend to fluctuate. Sometimes once they're known, they can kind of be removed. So those vary.
One might say, oh, we have the Interfaith Shelter. We have the New City sponsored shelter. Why are there homeless?
There's a lot of reasons for that. For one, the shelters can only provide so much space for that. You know, they do get filled up, especially the colder that it gets. But on top of that, as a pastor, I've worked a lot with homeless people, and even if I offer them a space to go to the shelter, they often refuse. I think there's something very human to that, where none of us want that full label, even if we're dealing with homeless, you know. Once it's like, I'm living in a shelter, you kind of have to own that and recognize the space you're in. And they might give other reasons too as to why they don't want to go, and that just varies from person to person.
Well, I have asked people why they don't take advantage of the shelter, and sometimes they say they have rules I can't follow, or I've been a drug user and they will not accept me. Things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's varied from shelter to shelter as to what rules are. I also run into people that will occasionally tell me that they they're not allowed there, and you can tell that they maybe broke some rules that they they weren't supposed to.
And there are
Right.
people that, are there people that just choose to be homeless?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with some people where I have worked hard to get them into spaces to stay, and they have found it to be less preferable than their current homeless state. So it's a multi-faceted issue, and every person's in a different state. So it's really impossible. A lot of people want to narrow it down to like, this is the one reason people are dealing with homeless, and there's so many. There's mental health, there's finances, there's security, and a lot of other things. So
Yeah, as many reasons as there are people, probably.
exactly, yeah.
All right, so you encounter these people,
Mhm.
and do you talk to them?
Yeah, we will give everybody instructions that morning as to how to do this safely, because they might be homeless, but you are technically walking into their home. And this is at 5:30 in the morning because we're trying to catch them before they're up and moving around for the day. So it's all the more reason, like if you actually think you're finding someone, kind of announcing your presence ahead of time. I'm here with the homeless count. We're just looking for a little information. We have some bags of goods that we'd like to pass off. We're happy to try to get you connected with the shelter and other things, and yeah.
What do you give them? What's in the bags?
We've had 2 organizations that have donated this year to kind of help us with all kinds of things, but it's stuff that homeless people can use. So you might have gloves or the warming, I don't know, what are those called?
Yeah, the hand
Warming
warmers.
pouches, yeah. Just a varied amount of things. And any of that we have left over at the end, we just kind of stock up that we can use throughout the year to distribute at other events and whatnot.
And then, so the idea is to count. That's
Mm-hmm.
the main goal. But when you identify people that might be homeless, and besides giving them a bag of supplies, is
Mhm.
there any follow-up? Do we have opportunities for them to find out about what there might be available for housing?
Yeah, so an event that we host, that we hope to host later this year is called the Project Homeless Connect, in which we bring together all the organizations in Jackson in one building, and then everybody can kind of come in and meet all these organizations to figure out how they can deal with their homing crisis. But we're also welcome that day to connect them to the shelter if they would like that, as well as to just try to connect them into the organizations. Ultimately, all this information ends up in, that we collect, all that information ends up with Community Action Agency, who's well used to helping people dealing with housing crisis. So they then are able to kind of reach back out.
So this count being done in order to secure funding
Mm-hmm.
from,
Yeah, HUD is, I think, the organization that we work through. But a lot of the kind of legalistic paperwork type stuff, that's on Community Action. And I
Community
kind of,
Action Agency?
yeah, I help them just kind of put together the event.
And the more that you identify,
More you identify, the greater funding that comes in, because it tells those organizations we have a homeless problem here. So, I mean, if you've lived in Jackson, you've probably seen someone homeless somewhere. We know we have the issue, but if we can't prove to those who give us the funding to help those people,
you're not taking pictures or anything, are you?
no pictures. We ask for a little bit of basic information, and if there's any that they're unwilling to give, we just kind of make notes about things that we notice that. A lot of times, Community Action Agency, based on a description, might be like, "Oh, we know who that was." You know.
What about homeless people that might be living in Vandercook or Michigan Center or
Yeah,
Parma?
this covers Jackson County.
Jackson
so
County.
We'll send people out to Parma and some other areas, some truck stops and things on our maps, just to. Do you see anyone sleeping in a car, or are you in a parking lot and you see someone?
Yeah, I'm sure people have thought, well, if I was homeless, where would I be? I would think, and half the nation's homeless live in California.
Yeah.
That's where it's warmer
Mhm.
year round.
Mhm.
I think that's what attracts that many to that state.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How many homeless do we have last year?
Again, those stats we kind of report back over to Community Action Agency. So I don't have those on me. But even what we do send is just a representation of what we found that day. The organizations that we give those numbers to aren't just like, this is specifically the amount of homeless they have. They then have ways of working with those estimates to get a better idea.
Yeah, you're not going to see everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are, as we said, people that just, they don't want to be discovered. They don't want to be seen and don't want to be seen as homeless.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you need volunteers to go around?
Yep, this is a community community project where anyone who wants to show up just comes at 5:30 in the morning. Hopefully not another polar vortex. I heard it's supposed to be nicer. January 31st, it's a Wednesday. We'll meet at our church. We just kind of host it, and then we take to the streets after we've explained some safety protocols and given people maps. And if you find anyone, you'll report back with the forms that you have, and we'll give you some bags to take as well that you can help people out. Or if you find a camp or a tent, you can leave that there even if you don't find the person.
Very good. Well, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. What's happening at 1208 Greenwood this weekend?
Oh, this weekend we just had a street food event yesterday, is what we call it, where a bunch of people, we just invite the community to come eat and have a good time. And we've got a whole year planned out on our webpage already, so I'm taking it one day at a time.
All right. Appreciate you coming in and working on this issue in our community.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
With the Jackson County Continuum of Care and the annual homeless count, pastor of 1208 Greenwood, Jamin Bradley.